At 7:47 this morning Eastern Time, while most Americans were pouring their first cup of coffee, the natural gas market completed a move that hasn't been seen in 36 years, 75% in 3 days, the largest 5-day surge since 1990. And right now, 200 million Americans are directly in the path of what's coming next. CNBC won't tell you the real story. Bloomberg is calling it weather-driven volatility. The Wall Street Journal is running headlines about cold snap impacts. But none of them are connecting the dots. This isn't just a price spike. It's the beginning of a structural collapse that was engineered over years and is now unfolding in real time. Let me give you the timestamp that matters. Tuesday, January 20th, 2026, 9:30 a.m. Eastern. February natural gas futures posted a single-day gain of 25.91%. By Thursday morning, the Henry Hub benchmark touched $5.30 per million BTUs. But here's what the mainstream isn't reporting: spot prices, the gas that's actually being delivered right now. In Louisiana, at the Henry Hub physical delivery point, spot gas jumped from under $4 last Friday to $13 this Thursday morning. $4 to $13. That's a 285% increase in 1 week. Not in the futures market where speculators play, in the actual physical market where gas changes hands. And in the Northeast, where pipeline constraints create bottlenecks, spot gas is trading at $30 per million BTU. $4 to $30. That's a 650% premium over what it cost a week ago. If you're heating your home with natural gas in New England right now, you're paying 7 times what someone in Louisiana is paying. Why is this happening? 3 words: Appalachian freeze-offs. Appalachia produces roughly 1/3 of all natural gas in the United States. The Marcellus Shale, the Utica Shale. These formations made America the world's largest natural gas producer. A freeze-off occurs when water vapor or hydrates freeze inside the production infrastructure. When temperatures drop below 15 to 20 degrees Fahrenheit, these hydrates form and physically block the flow of gas. When a freeze-off happens, production doesn't slow down gradually. It stops. Completely. And freeze-offs happen precisely when demand is at its maximum, when everyone is cranking their heaters to maximum. It's a self-reinforcing death spiral. Less supply plus more demand equals parabolic prices. I've watched this pattern before. December 2022, Winter Storm Elliott. Appalachian output dropped 26%, falling from 34 billion cubic feet per day to just 25.2 billion. That's a loss of nearly 9 billion cubic feet in days, and that storm wasn't as severe as what's coming now. Right now, production in Appalachia has already fallen 1.1 billion cubic feet per day from last week. The current output is 35.5 billion cubic feet per day, down from recent highs near 37 billion. Criterion Research projects that production could fall to 30 billion cubic feet per day or lower by this weekend. That's a 20% drop in days. If Appalachian production drops from 35 to 30 billion, that's a loss of 5 billion cubic feet, approximately 5% of the entire nation's gas supply. Disappearing in the middle of a historic cold snap, when 200 million people need heat. If we see a repeat of Elliott's 26% decline, that becomes 9% of national supply. Gone. But it gets worse. Over the past 2 years, major natural gas producers have been playing a dangerous game. EQT, the second largest gas producer in America. Expand Energy, formed by the merger of Chesapeake and Southwestern. These companies cut capital expenditures by up to 20% after prices fell in 2023 and 2024. They called it production discipline. What they actually did was eliminate the spare capacity that functioned as a safety cushion for moments exactly like this one. EQT is projecting $3.3 billion in free cash flow for 2026. Their earnings per share is expected to rise 67% this year. The executives are making money, the shareholders are making money, and the infrastructure that's supposed to keep Americans warm is freezing solid. Meanwhile, what's been growing exponentially? Data centers, AI facilities. In 2025 alone, 225 new large load requests were filed to connect to the power grid. 75% of those were data centers. These facilities consume more than 1 billion cubic feet of natural gas every single day, roughly 1% of total U.S. production, going to data centers every day. And they run at maximum capacity 24/7, flattening the demand curve and leaving less margin for surges. So we have producers cutting supply to protect profits. We have tech companies consuming more and more. We have infrastructure designed for a different era. And now we have an Arctic blast that will push demand to record levels while physically freezing the infrastructure that delivers the gas. This isn't a perfect storm. This is a storm manufactured by negligence, greed, and willful blindness to obvious risks. ERCOT, the Texas grid operator, has issued a weather watch from Saturday through Tuesday. They're projecting peak demand of 82.6 gigawatts on Monday. That would exceed the all-time winter record of 80.2 gigawatts set last year. They claim they have 93.3 gigawatts of capacity available. They say they anticipate having sufficient generation. Let me tell you what those reassurances are worth. In February 2021, Winter Storm Uri hit Texas. ERCOT said they were prepared. They said they had adequate reserves. They said the grid would hold. The grid collapsed. 20,000 megawatts of rolling blackouts were ordered, the largest controlled load-shedding event in American history. More than 4.5 million people lost power. The average outage lasted 42 hours. 49% of Texans lost running water because pumping stations run on electricity. The official death toll was 210 people, but that number is a lie. A detailed analysis examining death certificates and excess mortality data found the actual number was over 700 people. 700 Americans dead because the power grid failed in the cold. Hypothermia killed 2/3 of them. The economic cost exceeded $190 billion. And here's what should terrify you. The winter reserve margin in 2021 was 17.5%. Today, in January 2026, that margin is 10.1%. The margin has shrunk by 42%. Dispatchable generation from gas, coal, and nuclear remains roughly the same as before Uri. But winter peak demand has increased by 20%. Why? Data centers, electric vehicles, population growth in the Sun Belt, heat pumps replacing gas furnaces. Demand is up, reliable supply is flat, and the margin that's supposed to protect us has been squeezed to nearly nothing. Some analysts say the risk is lower because of improvements since 2021. Weatherization requirements were passed into law. Thousands of inspections have been conducted. 40 gigawatts of new solar and battery storage have been added. But other analysts, the ones who aren't on utility company payrolls, say the real risk is actually higher than it was in 2021. The margin is thinner, the demand is greater, the complexity of the system has increased with all those new solar farms and batteries, which work great in normal conditions, but have their own failure modes in extreme cold. And this storm is projected to be worse than Elliott. Pittsburgh is forecasted to hit negative 6.8 degrees Fahrenheit next week. That's colder than the coldest point of Winter Storm Elliott, and it's expected to last longer. The upper Midwest and Great Lakes region will see wind chills of negative 40 to negative 50 degrees. At negative 40 degrees wind chill, exposed skin can get frostbite in under 10 minutes. At negative 50, it can happen in under 5 minutes. Texas, the Gulf Coast, places with infrastructure built for mild winters, will experience wind chills in the single digits to negative 10. Dallas is expecting ice. Austin is forecasted to drop to 16 degrees Fahrenheit, 25 degrees below normal. These are temperatures that Texas infrastructure was never designed to handle. The Northeast is expecting ice accumulation of up to 1 inch. Ice accumulates on wires, insulators, and poles. Trees covered in ice lean into power lines. Branches snap and take out transformers. In the Carolinas, Georgia, Virginia, forecasters are warning of widespread and long-lasting power outages just from the ice alone. Winter Storm Fern will affect a 2,000-mile stretch from the southern plains to the northeast. 200 million Americans across 24 states. This is not a local event. This is a national emergency that authorities are refusing to call a national emergency. Now let me walk you through what's going to happen over the next 7 days. Wednesday and Thursday, today and tomorrow. This is your preparation window. Prices continue climbing. Appalachian production drops another 1 to 2 billion cubic feet per day as early freeze-offs begin. Hardware stores will start running low on generators. After tomorrow evening, stores will be stripped, and the window for calm preparation will close. Friday, January 24th. The Arctic front crosses into Texas around dawn. By evening, hard freeze conditions will extend across most of the state. Large-scale freeze-offs begin across southern production regions. ERCOT activates full emergency protocols. This is the point of no return. If you're not prepared by Friday morning, you're gambling with your life. Saturday and Sunday, January 25th and 26th, the peak of the storm, the coldest temperatures, the highest risk of grid failures. If demand exceeds projections by even 5%, they'll be scrambling. If any significant generation goes offline, rolling blackouts begin. This is when people die. Quietly, in their homes, as the temperature drops below 50 inside, then below 40, as elderly people who can't produce enough body heat start to slip away, as infants in unheated nurseries succumb to hypothermia. Monday through Wednesday, January 27th to 29th. The cold begins to moderate slowly. Assessment of damage begins. Body counts start to emerge. Early reports will understate casualties because cold-related deaths often aren't counted immediately. Hypothermia doesn't always show up, obviously, on a death certificate. It takes weeks for the real toll to become clear. Over the next 30 days, your heating bills will arrive. If you're on variable rate natural gas and millions of Americans are without fully understanding the risk, you could see bills 2 or 3 times higher than normal. The wholesale spike will flow through to retail with a lag. If wholesale gas triples from $40 to $12 and wholesale represents 40% of your bill, your total bill goes up by 80%. A $200 bill becomes a $360 bill. Now, here's what matters most. What does this mean for you personally? If you're one of the 200 million people in the path of this storm, your next 72 hours depend on decisions you make in the next 24. This is not hyperbole. This is arithmetic. What happens if you lose power when the wind chill is negative 40 degrees? Hypothermia begins when your body temperature drops below 95 degrees Fahrenheit. Normal body temperature is 98.6. A drop of just 3.6 degrees begins the process. In a house without heat, with outside temperatures in single digits or below, that can happen within hours. Of the 700-plus people who died during Winter Storm Uri, 2/3 died from hypothermia. Not from accidents, from simply getting cold and never warming up again. Many were found in their own homes. They thought they could wait it out. They were wrong. Here's what you do. The preparation list. Execute it today. First, water. Fill bathtubs, fill containers. If power goes out, water pumping stations go down too. Second, food that doesn't require cooking. Energy bars, canned goods, peanut butter, anything you can eat without electricity. Third, blankets, layers, sleeping bags. If heat goes out, pick one small room, close the doors, trap your body heat in the smallest possible volume. Fourth, if you have a gas heater that doesn't require electricity, make sure you have fuel, but be careful about carbon monoxide. Open a window slightly. Fifth, cash. If the power grid goes down, card readers don't work. ATMs don't work. Get several $100s in small bills today. Sixth, a full tank of gas in your vehicle. If you need to evacuate or run the engine for heat, you need fuel. Never run a car in an enclosed garage. Seventh, charge all your devices now. Communication could become critical. Eighth, medications. Make sure you have enough for a week. Pharmacies might not be open. What not to do. Don't assume the government will save you. FEMA response times are measured in days, not hours. Don't assume your utility will warn you before blackouts. During Uri, the lights just went off without warning. Don't heat your house with your oven. Carbon monoxide kills quietly. Don't assume this is just another winter storm. A 75% move in 3 days is the market screaming that supply and demand have become catastrophically imbalanced. Why isn't the media treating this with the urgency it deserves? Because admitting the truth would require admitting failure. The producers who cut capex would have to admit they prioritized dividends over security. The regulators who approved all those data center connections would have to admit they didn't consider grid stability implications. The politicians who promised energy independence would have to admit that independence means nothing when the infrastructure freezes. So they spin. They minimize. They say the grid is ready. They say there's adequate capacity. They say not to panic. They said all those things in February 2021 too. You know better now. You've seen the numbers. $40 to $13 in 1 week. 37 billion cubic feet to potentially 30 billion or lower. 17.5% reserve margin to 10.1%. 700 dead in Uri when the system was supposedly stronger than it is today. The arithmetic doesn't lie, the market doesn't lie, the temperature forecast doesn't lie. In the next week, some of you will experience the worst cold you've ever felt. Some will lose power. Some will face genuine danger. But because you understand what's happening and why, you have something most people don't. Time, information, and a checklist. Use the next 24 hours. Every hour you wait is an hour of preparation you lose. Step 1. Get water and supplies today. Step 2. Fill your gas tank tonight. Step 3. Have cash on hand before Friday. Step 4. Inform your neighbors, especially elderly ones who might not know what's coming. Step 5. Share this information with someone you care about in the affected region. This isn't about fear, it's about preparation. It's about refusing to be a passive victim of a system designed to extract profit, not protect people. When the grid fails, when institutions fail, when assurances prove hollow, you're the only backup you have. The people who make it through the next week will be the ones who acted when they still could. The ones who looked at the data, understood the risk, and prepared accordingly. Be one of those people. The door is closing. Walk through it while you still can, because by Friday morning it's locked, and whatever side you're on, that's where you'll stay.